Hello friends and welcome. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world for this edition of Fireside Chat with my special guest, Lindelwa Skenjana, the author of the book Black Girl's Guide to Corporate South Africa. My name is Marisa Fredericks and I will be your conversation facilitator today. The Fireside Chat is brought to you by Old Mutual Namibia and is the second edition of a series of talks with female African authors. Old Mutual has long been a proponent of diversity in the workplace and has engaged in a variety of activities across the group to empower women in the workplace, recognize their achievements, and to engage women in a way that ensures growth, promotes safe spaces, and provides inspiration. Our Women's Summit, which had been a mainstay since 2011, is an example of our commitment towards women's empowerment and leadership. The Old Mutual Women's Network, better known as OWN, is also testimony to this commitment, ensuring that gender equality is promoted across the group's Africa footprint, which covers 13 countries. During our Fireside Chat, we aim to provide you with new insights, to inspire you, and to engage with African authors who have something important to say in steering all people, and specifically women, towards their full potential. In our first chat, we discussed the theme of leading in times of crisis with renowned Namibian journalist, editor, and activist Gwen Lister. And today, we focus on the younger generation, diving into the highly relevant topic of navigating the corporate world as an African millennial woman with Lindelwa Skenjana. Before I introduce her to you, just a reminder to all our viewers out there, please do participate in the conversation by posting your chats, your comments, your experiences, and the insights you're taking from this engagement on the platforms that you are following from. Also, do not forget that towards the end of this discussion, the last 15 minutes, I will pose all your questions to Lindelwa for her to address it. Additionally, you may be sharing your learnings on our social media platform by tagging in at Old Mutual Namibia and use our hashtags Break the Bias, which leans towards the International Women's Day theme of the 8th of March, as well as hashtag Old Mutual Fireside Chat. Allow me now to introduce to you our Fireside Chat guest for today, Lindelwa Skenjana. Born and raised in South Africa, Lindelwa is a young South African corporate professional who is making waves in the digital and innovation space. She's a corporate leader in the digital space with financial services, holds a master's degree in ICT for development from the University of Manchester, a Bachelor's of Arts honours degree in brand leadership and management, and a Bachelor's of Social Sciences degree in organizational psychology and industrial sociology. Her experiences spans various industries, which include telecommunications, ICT policy and regulation management consulting work, financial services, SMME development, and digital innovation. In 2019, Lindelwa was a Mail and Guardian Top 200 Youth Achievement recipient. Lindelwa is also a former co-founder of Mbewu Movement, an inspiring platform that was created to promote intergenerational dialogue and mentorship in order to empower young African women. Lindelwa, we're so excited to have you in Namibia. How has your first few hours been in the land of the brave?
Thank you so much, Marisa. Thank you so much for having me, and it's been incredible. So just witnessing how diverse and inclusive the teams I've been engaging have been. Thank you.
I must say congratulations on your book, Black Girl's Guide to Corporate South Africa. And it comes so timely because we do experience currently a shift in generation from Generation X, which I represent, to Generation Y, which you represent here today, also better known as the millennials. And I do see that the themes that we are covering in this book is also very relevant in both countries, taken into consideration our country's history and that shared history that we have between South Africa and Namibia, and even across our borders.
Absolutely. There are lots of similarities. And whilst we're not a homogenous group, I guess, as African women, we can always learn from each other's experiences.
Absolutely. Now let's dive right into your book. Why was it important for you to write the Black Girl's Guide to Corporate South Africa? And what do you hope to achieve and want your learners, or rather your readers, to achieve through your book?
There are a number of reasons, Mauriza, but I'll just zone in on these two. The first is there's a Toni Morrison quote that says, if there's a book out there if there's a book you would like to read that's not yet out there, it's your duty to write that book, firstly.
Stunning.
Secondly, I believe that as African women, as women of color, it's no longer a choice for us to be a bystander when it comes to issues that concern us. In order for history not to repeat itself, we have to be at the forefront of archiving our own experiences. I mean, I was reading some UN reports, some poverty reports. It's always, most of the time black women, that are dominating that space. In South Africa, pre-democracy, the last people to be recognized in terms of human rights were black women. So it's our responsibility to capture our experiences.
Fantastic. And we're going to jump right into your book. And you start in the early pages talking about community, the importance of community building. And I know that your mum has been the role model in introducing communities to you. I'm sure she's listening and following the conversation this morning.
Absolutely, she is. Yes, so how my mom did that, for instance, I mean, growing up, there'd be uncles from Malawi, aunts from Ghana, the Americas. I mean, in a South African context, Indian people, white people, black people would come in through the door. And I mean, the common thing as a black child at home is to respect whoever comes in through the door. So that's been a key learning, is we actually all need each other and respect whoever walks through the door.
And how has your introduction to community help you understand the importance of community building in your professional journey?
Yes, I think how it's helped shape me is understanding the thing around being a service leader. So despite the color or the gender of the person you may be dealing with, fundamentally being a servant leader is around respect and authenticity and staying in your power.
And you've also been very intentional about seeking mentors, sponsors and models, role models.
Absolutely.
Why is that important?
Yeah, we can all deal with with some help and a guide, Mauriza. If people have walked a path before you, what do you have to lose? Besides benefit from their knowledge. So that's been a key part of the journey for me.
Yeah, we're going to touch the topic of intersectionalities, and your book specifically covers and so beautifully handles the race, the gender, the issue of age, culture and economic background. Your presentation of these various dimensions highlights specifically the complexities that are out there and exist for women as they navigate the corporate world. For you, tell me, how important is it that we understand this, and what impact does it have on the professional young black women?
Yes. I think it's really important to understand that, because there's always, I guess, with social construct and identities, there's always power plays and power dynamics at play. So it's important, I guess, even for the people on the privilege side of those power dynamics to understand that, because I think we all walk around with unconscious biases when it comes to, race things and gender things and age things. So the minute you understand those things and you start unlearning and unraveling your unconscious biases, then we can all, better navigate the spaces where we all come together.
I like the term that you use, the triple burden. For me, that really stands out, and it's got to do with being black, being female, and being young. Elaborate a little bit more about that.
Oh gosh, there's so much. Considering history as well, when you move in the world as a black person, when you move in the world as a woman, and when you move in the world being young. Now, when you move in the world being all of those three things, being black, being a woman, and being young, it just feels like there's a lot going against you. And there's lots of examples, right? If we look up at most leadership roles in various industries, it's really difficult as a black woman, as a young black woman, when you're looking up and you can't see people that look like you. How are you supposed to dream and reach for more and higher? Yeah.
And you also talk about ageism, and we mentioned earlier the generational relationship between Gen X and Gen Y. So my question to you is, and I would like to quote you specifically, ageism and prejudice at work aren't just matters for older people. You also write that when you are young, especially young black female, which we address now, what you know can be questioned at every turn by older men and women. So what is the key takeaway for older women, specifically in corporate, when it comes to handling intergenerational relations and conflict?
Yes. Whenever I personally think about elders in any space, but more so in a corporate environment, the role and the job of an elder is to teach and is to guide, right? You don't have to babysit someone necessarily, but your role, if we think about a corporate or any workspace as an Olympic, is to pass on the baton, right? Because ultimately there's one goal, and that's winning. So when I think about how older women or even older men, should think about this intergenerational sharing in spaces, is to pass down knowledge, is to teach, and is to guide.
There's a lot of female entering the corporate world with the aim to really make it to top leadership. What can they take away or learn about intergenerational dynamics, and how best can they navigate their way when they are confronted with this?
My approach, Marisa, has been to have an open heart and to learn. At every turn, learn, because, I mean, whilst you may come in with technical and theoretical knowledge, knowing how the game works and the playing field, you do need the elders, the older generation, to teach you things. So go into those spaces with an open mind and an open heart towards learning.
Yeah, but where do we draw the line between it's ageism or it's just personality in the workplace where you experience this?
Yeah, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive, actually, I think they coexist, and it's problematic, especially if then it breeds to toxicity, right? But I think the two can coexist, which is problematic, yeah.
Yes. I would like us to talk a little bit about race. I don't think we can ever talk enough about prejudices when it comes to race, the theme of race. And something that stood out for me in reading your book specifically, and I would like to quote you again, is that you say, black women to black women violence is the ugliest form of aggression you've witnessed in the workplace. That sounds very raw. What tools do you have to share on how women of all generations, obviously, can navigate from this aggression and find ways of coexisting and co-working?
Yeah. It's really unfortunate, Marisa, and I guess it's always shocking when you expect, another black woman to be a place of comfort and solace, and maybe they perhaps turn out not to be. And what I've learned and I've been taught is just to have the raw conversations. I guess at the end of the day, we're all people, and we all bring whatever it is we're dealing with to the workspace. So I guess just having those woman-to-woman talks in those moments, and not just, living with that in yourself and walking away feeling broken down. If, you are feeling that sort of black on black or black to black woman violence, is having those conversations and understanding where the other person's coming from.
Will we be able to move beyond this racial divide? What do you think?
Real work needs to be done. I think moving away doesn't just happen, right? And it definitely doesn't just happen overnight. When these things are systematically ingrained in the DNA of these spaces. So I think a lot of intentional work needs to be done that impact bottom lines, perhaps. Yeah.
In your book also you've brought in specifically some of the experiences of co-workers, members of your community, friends that you've met along your professional journey. And there's one specifically of Nomthandazo. I hope I pronounce her name correctly. She actually stated in the book through her testimony and experience that black men benefit from racial diversity. And I want to take the conversation slowly through this one. Black men benefit from racial diversity, while white women benefit from gender diversity. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so just to touch on the first part of your question, Marisa, it was really important for me to engage different women to contribute as a part of the book, because as Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi says, there's a danger in telling a single story. So it was important that this isn't a Lindelwa story, but that represents many black female voices who are at different stages in their career journey. Now with that, the examples are many. When in the book I did some research looking at the top 40 companies in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and when you look at the last 20 decades, you see that for the most part, it's white males that have been in power at the helm. So not only CEOs, but the excos and the boards, right? And when a woman has been introduced, it was a white woman, right? And it's only in the last few years where a black woman has been introduced. But when I also looked at the America's FTSE 500 companies, I mean, Christine Lagarde held, you know, the fort for a very long time. 7% of the FTSE 500 companies are run by women, but it's white women. So wherever we look, we see that when the, you know, the race card is ticked, it's a black man that's there, and when the gender card is ticked, it's a white woman that's there. So we're seeing that.
Yeah. And black women feel that they are being cheated. Can we ever overcome this?
Again, Marisa, I think this thing of overcoming isn't going to happen overnight. And I think, you know, again, unless there's systematic, initiatives that are put in place with targets, very deliberate training, etc., and for it not to just be a soft thing. It shouldn't be a choice, to take matters of diversity, inclusion, and equity at the forefront of creating organizations. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So on the growth of being the right kind of leader, I think that's the big question, especially because you're giving us a guideline how to navigate, and especially young women. What would you say are the steps that you are taking specifically in changing the face and the nature of leadership?
For me, Marisa, the first thing is, acknowledging our humanness. We are all people first. We are all someone's child. We are all someone's something, before we come into our roles, firstly. But secondly, I guess, also then taking your contractual obligations very seriously, because you're there to fulfill or be a resource to fulfill a particular path. But I think the humanness in these spaces becomes really important. I recently read a Simon Sinek quote that says, employees are people, your customers are people. If you don't understand people, then you don't understand business. So I think that's the key to all of it.
Yes, and we have this wonderful quote. Viewers can actually see this, and I love this photo we took of you yesterday. To all the young black women in corporate, never stop learning, never stop wanting more and better for yourself. Abandon fear. Have you experienced fear in the workplace?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, in the form of imposter syndrome. Why am I here? Am I good enough? Should I be here? You know? And I guess it's just you have to learn how to quieten that voice. But I think to the earlier parts of our conversation, if you keep looking up at the world and you don't see people and leaders that look like you, it makes it really hard, Marisa. But I guess this is why then you have to look inward and build yourself from the inside out.
Yes. I would like to take the conversation back to growth and being the right kind of leader. Your book highlights your own journey from intern, and I was shocked to find that you were an intern for 3 years. Was that deliberate, or why exactly did it take so long for you to move past being an intern to official corporate professional?
I guess the pro part of that period was that in that organization you could move around. So you weren't interning just in one division. You had the option of moving from division to division. The second part is the organization didn't have a plan for the interns. So they were sort of figuring out what would happen with the batch at the end of the day, you know, where do we place them, etc. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, and now you find yourself in senior management position. So what is your plan and vision for the type of leadership that you wish you had?
Yeah. Humanness, Marisa. Humanness. So going back to the Simon Sinek quote, understand people for who they are, understand your peers and maybe your teammates, around their strengths, their weaknesses, so you can extract the best value from people, understand the visions they have for themselves and where they want to go. Because as I said, if you are a leader, your role is to guide, right? So, yeah.
And you're also now a mother of a young girl. Yes. What are your dreams and aspirations for her generation?
Yeah, I am a beautiful little girl. So I recently heard a quote that says, when an egg is cracked from the outside, it dies, but when an egg is cracked from the inside, new life begins. So my wish for my daughter and her generation is that may they be so deeply aligned with their purpose and who they're intended to be, that they aren't too baffled about the things that happen from the outside firstly. But secondly, there's a quote as well, a Maya Angelou quote that says, I appear as one, but I stand as 10,000 women that came before me. May she truly know, that within her DNA is the Wangari Maathais from Kenya, the Yaya Santawas from Ghana, your Mam Lillian Ngoyi and your Winnie Madikizela Mandelas, all ingrained in her.
Fantastic. And let's come back to your leadership approach. What steps are you taking now to groom and mentor women to be better prepared for corporate world?
Yes. So I've started a platform actually called Indie Mayam, which our listeners can find on Instagram. And what that seeks to do or to achieve is to really highlight the importance of self-awareness and self-love. Because I think those are the two critical ingredients in trying to achieve external sustainable success. I think where everything cripples down is when people don't know themselves, when people haven't healed their own, gremlins that may be out there, which then play out in very ugly ways. So I'm just working on encouraging people to increase their self-awareness and their self-love.
Okay, so what kind of leadership do you think we can expect from the generational leader that you currently are, the millennials?
Yes.
What do they bring to corporate world?
From, engaging my millennial peers, and some of whom are in leadership positions, empathy. There's a strong empathetic leadership style. Transparency. I think this thing around, what an organization's values are. We take that very seriously and try to uphold that. And thirdly, purpose-driven. I found with my millennial peers, if something doesn't have a purpose that's going to impact society in a positive way, then that's not important. So the three things, empathy, transparency, and purpose-driven.
Which is very different from Generation X. We stayed into works for purpose of security and for work and for income, whereas that is not important to the millennials.
Yes. It's almost as though Gen X shut down that emotional,
correct,
that emotional part, and it was just go.
We just had to survive.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to be taking some of your comments and questions from our online audiences. We would like you to participate, share that with us, and I will gladly address your questions. And we've got this powerful quote of you on screen now, Lindelwa, and it says, "You do not always have to stay strong, just always stay true." And I do recall this one part in your book where you mentioned, and I've experienced you as a person that's a bit on the shy side, soft-spoken, and yet when you step foot into corporate world, you were made to believe that you need to be boisterous, you need to be loud to be heard. How real is that? And what were the impacts for you and the awakening to come to know that?
I guess a huge part of writing the book was very reflective, right? And I think what I speak about is the playing up and the rewarding of masculine energy, right? And I think the first thing you naturally do, when you aren't of a particular energy in a space, is you question yourself. You question yourself, you doubt yourself, you ask yourself if there's something wrong. But as life and as time goes on, and the more you meet the right kind of leaders, you get affirmed that it's okay, to stay yourself, to stay true to yourself. So that's where that comes from.
But does the workplace really allow that for you, to stay yourself? I mean, it's such a diverse group of people coming together with various skills, talents, backgrounds. And I recall this one colleague telling you that for you to really be successful, you have to be known at a different level.
Yeah. Look, a decade and I'm still standing. Definitely uphill, not a walk in the park, but I've had to make it work, right? Because as I said, with the whole self-awareness thing, you really just need to keep it real about who you are, who the space is, what's required, and you find a middle ground.
Okay, so what's the next step for you in this journey of awareness?
Sure. I really would like to see Indimayam grow, you know, as a mentoring platform, but, you know, just deepening the tools around being a guide. I really think, so not just only in the corporate space and various other industries, that the more we normalize talking, having these conversations, but looking inward first, so by the time you step out and into the world of work, you know who you are. I think that's really important.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's about knowing who you are and staying true to yourself.
Absolutely.
Let's just have a chat and see if there are any questions coming on from our online audiences. We'll be receiving those through our channels, and please don't forget to hashtag Old Mutual Fireside Chat, as well as Break the Biases. We're talking today with Lindelwa Skenjana. She's the author of The Black Girl's Guide to Corporate South Africa, and we're drawing some great lessons from your experiences. Lindelwa, I know we've covered most of the themes, and I would like to dive a little deeper in terms of some of your experiences, specifically when it comes to the privileges that men have in the workplace. At one point, you mentioned that men are very confident when it comes to applying for positions. They are 100% confident and sure that they have the set skills and requirements, while women are shying away and they are much more hard on themselves and doubting their potential. Why is that so?
Yeah, and I mean, there's an article I read, Marisa, that says, yeah, if a man looks at a job description and he can do 4 of the 10 things, he applies for the job, right? But when a woman looks at the same job description and she can do 8 of the 10 things, she doesn't. She focuses on her lack. And another one I read about how men are just great at networking, you know, and all of that good stuff. I think what becomes challenging, I mean, I think of myself as a black woman, right? You are raised to serve. You are raised to be there, to help and be there for other people. Whereas I think for the most part in upbringing, men are just encouraged to go, go, go. So I think a lot of it is also linked to how we raise children.
Yeah, and that's why I love what you said about we have to unlearn a lot for us to be able to navigate the way forward.
Yes, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of unlearning to do. I think as it links to the unconscious bias, so many of us walk around with unconscious biases, especially when it comes to social construct. When it comes to matters of race, when it comes to matters of gender, we're so quick to look at the surface, you know, and most of the time we aren't aware, which is why the training around those things becomes so critical.
I've got a few questions from our audience coming in, and this one is quite special. Thank you, Lindelwa, for sharing, and your book does sound very informative. My question is, what's your view on black women in power versus black women empowerment? That's a good one. And this is coming from Kamoli. Kamoli, please tell us also where you are watching us from in the world.
The two shouldn't be mutually exclusive. When black women are in power, it is their responsibility to focus on matters of black empowerment.
Love that.
All right? You cannot separate the two. So whilst the order of importance may be different, right? So some people consider themselves black first before they consider themselves women. But anyone actually who's in a position of power has a responsibility. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's another one coming in saying, Brene Brown also talks about empathetic leadership and the importance of it in today's society. This is from an anonymous viewer.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
I love Brene Brown's work, and she also speaks about the power of vulnerability, which is something I practice quite freely, actually, because there's power in that, right? Your story is yours, and that is truly your power. So the more you walk in that, your light will emanate from that.
Yeah, but we say that a lot, Lindelwa. There's power in vulnerability. Yes. Let's give a few practical examples. Because yes, we do think vulnerability in the workplace is only for women, and we're not allowed to express our weaknesses because it's been perceived as a weakness.
Yes.
Give us a few examples of being really vulnerable in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, so in a team setting, if you're in a leadership position and you don't know something, and someone who may be younger or junior to you by hierarchy knows something, you know, just in that moment of letting them be the one that leads or teaches, you know, just shifts the dial a bit, because again, we're human first, Moriza.
I love that.
So just humanizing our experiences in the workplace becomes really important.
Yes.
For us to stay connected, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your questions, and we'll be sharing more coming through as we receive them. Do participate. We've got Lindelwa Skenjana in Namibia. It's the first time visiting, and this is a very powerful book. It's actually available for sale in Namibia at the local book den store, and we're happy to have you here. And one of the reviews that you got from your book, it's right at the front from Dr. Judy Dlamini. She says, this book is a must-read. Millennial African female voice. During her time, there wasn't really voices available. It was a luxury to voice their concerns and their views. And we spoke about this earlier, that your generation is not really standing back. You are ready to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful to Dr. Judy Dlamini. She's such a busy woman. You know, not only a businesswoman, but a chancellor, and, you know, sits on a number of boards. So I'm really grateful that she has supported and endorsed what the book stands for. But yes, I think that relates deeply to being a millennial, right? And I guess all the educational investment our families and parents have put behind is, okay, you're sitting on all of this knowledge and you have to do something about it. So being purpose-driven and purpose-led, as you understand the importance of community, it's not just about you and it's not an ego thing, but you have a responsibility, you know, to your community. Yeah.
And we've got another question that just came in through our YouTube channel. This is from Tuyakula Musheku. Love that name. Question for Lindelwa. What did you do to actively overcome imposter syndrome?
Sure.
That's a deep one.
Assuming I've overcome it. It's daily work. I watch a lot of like YouTube and TED Talks of people I admire. So there's an Oprah Winfrey show talk that she gives at Stanford University, which I always visit when I look for gems and I try to center myself. The second is I always, again, try find content around people I admire. So there's a marketer in America. Her name is Bozoma St. John. And I just watch and study people I admire and take from that. And you know, you have to trick yourself in trying to emulate that energy. So it's an iterative process. It doesn't happen overnight. But also where I do get compliments or do get accolades is have that written somewhere. So you can look and remind yourself, you are the girl you think you are. You know, you've done all of that stuff. You are that amazing. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
You also, Lindelwa, focuses on the currency, the success currency of the workplace. What is it that you have discovered during your corporate journey is defined as the success currency of the workplace?
Yeah. I think I definitely do touch on it, and it's around the masculine energy, but which is rewarded. Aggression is rewarded. And external validation, right? So what people, how you're perceived, and you know what people think about you is a really a key part to that currency.
And how can we change that around?
Systemic changes, Moriza. So that training around unconscious bias. And reprioritizing, you know, because company visions, missions, and values aren't there as decorative, but bringing that to the center and the core of what people are doing on a day-to-day basis becomes really important. But setting targets as well, right? So because you just have a diverse workforce, it's not enough.
Yes.
Do people feel like they're included? Do people feel like they belong? You know, and what is that doing to the bottom line? Because we know with diversity and inclusion comes innovation. So those things just need to be brought to the forefront of how business is done on a day-to-day basis.
Fantastic. I love that. So we've got a few questions coming in, viewers, so forgive me if I'm just looking down. I'm just scrolling through the information and the questions we're coming from our various platforms. We are live on YouTube, MS Teams, as well as Old Mutual's Facebook page. This one is coming from the Teams platform. Question by Adeline. She's asking, there is a book called Burnout, I think, which talks about people leaning on each other. White women support their husbands and everyone else, and black women are at the end of the chain. White women lean on black women. This is now, I'm just quoting what she wrote. It is expected of black women to attend to and submit to everyone, including white women. It appears that white women are confused when black women push back in the workplace. I would love to hear your comments on this.
What a loaded quote.
I read that very slowly, Lindelwa.
What a loaded quote. But what I have to say to that is that it's true. I think for a very long time, black women have been put in a position where they have to be there for everyone else. And it's time to change that, I think, which is why the rhetoric around self-love isn't just, you know, an airy-fairy thing. It isn't a thing you do just on Sundays, but it's a thing that should be at the center on how we live our lives as women, and especially as black women. For so long, for so many generations, you know, we've been the caretakers of many people, but it's time to turn that around inward.
So,
yeah.
Here's another one, and I'm not so sure if I can pronounce your name correctly. Please forgive me. This is from Rishalda Mokashao. Who is the onus on to radically deal with sexism and racism in the workplace? Because it surely cannot be on black women. How do we tell the people who are not responsible for building this intricate and exclusive system to begin to detangle it?
I mean, generically, Mauriza, I'd say the onus is on everyone, including us, for the real change to happen. But because with structure, there's structural power, right? So those in leadership positions, the onus, I guess, is weighs in heavier on them, right? So if people in positions of power are the ones that are driving diversity, inclusion, and belonging, you know, I guess that's where we'll feel and see the ripple effect more. Yeah, but people who hold privilege as well, because with privilege comes power. Yeah, so I think that's who the onus is on.
Well, I hope you are satisfied with that feedback there, and our leaders are obviously listening in as well. Here's an additional question from Tuyakula Masheku. What strategy did you adopt in order to create impact within your role? Love that question.
I think it links to something I did mention earlier. So first is continually improving my skill set. So that's no one else's responsibility but myself, right? So finding out what's happening out there in the world. You know, am I equipped? Do I have the right knowledge, the right skill sets, etc. But also being deliberate and intentional around the community you keep within your organization. The more you cross network, right, with people that are in different spaces and different industries, the more you sharpen your knowledge as well. So just being intentional about sharpening your skill as you go along, being deliberate.
But yet again, in one part of your book said, being technically equipped, being highly educated, was not enough.
Yes.
Because there is a group of very important people who basically drive, who ultimately makes it to the top or not.
Exactly. So you can, but it doesn't take away from you doing the work, right? Because I guess when the system is ready, it'll find you prepared.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't be wait to be picked. That's what you said.
Shouldn't wait to be picked.
So bring those questions on. If you just joined us, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening to us from around the world. This is Old Mutual's Fireside Chat, and we brought Lindelwa Skenjana to Namibia for the very first time to have this sensitive conversation. It's a tough one because for the first time, this female black millennial was brave enough to depict her story and the experiences she had from the first time she set foot in corporate South Africa. And it wasn't an easy journey. Totally not what she expected it to be. And we would like to have this conversation to ensure you are equipped and empowered and that you participate in the discussion. So please send us those questions. I've got an anonymous one, and I don't know why people are so shy. They don't want their names to be mentioned on live broadcast. This is just a comment. Well done, Lindelwa. Proud to see black women excelling. Keep going. You are an inspiration to many.
Oh, thank you so much for that comment. Thank you.
Lindelwa, is there any future aspirations for a follow-up book from this guideline?
There are many books inside of me, Marisa. Many, many books. There's so many stories to tell when it comes to black women. But yeah, it's just a matter of time, timing, and the right moment. So maybe not necessarily the same subject matter, different subject matter, but yeah, only time will tell.
Only time will tell. So we still have a few minutes left. There's about 20 minutes left to cover your questions, your comments. Please also tell us from where are you following this live broadcast. And we definitely want you to get your fingers on this book. It's available if you are right here in Namibia at the Book Den in Windhoek. So please do share your questions with us. There's one specific point I took from your book that I thought was quite significant to me. Your name means awaited. Lindelwa means awaited. And I believe that you were born for this purpose. And that's why I'm so excited to have this very mature and honest conversation about your experience. It's as if your generation needed you to voice these concerns and experiences for the road ahead.
Oh, Marisa, you've just affirmed my purpose. Thank you so much. Yes, my grandmother gave me that name. Yeah.
That's quite special.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned that we are inclined to perform at our best when we are ourselves in the workplace. Is that doable?
Yeah, 100%. So there's another term called code switching. Which apparently, you know, is affiliated to mostly black people, but more so black women, where we feel like we can't be ourselves. So the minute you work into most workplace environments, you know, you need to change the way you speak, you need to change the way you laugh. You can't wear your afro the way you would like to wear your afro. Your hair needs to be slick and yes, tied up, etc. So the minute you're contending, you know, with all those other things, as opposed to just walking into a space and be yourself, it's difficult. You get the best out of people when they feel like they belong. You know, then they even give themselves, you know, more than 100. They give this, correct, you know, to the space more than 100%. So the minute you're having to deal or navigate other things, it takes away. It chips at you, and the longer you have to do that, you know, sure, who's left? It's a shadow of yourself.
Sure. And we've got a comment here specifically for you. I love what Lorraine Alberto is saying. She says, I just want to express my gratitude for this occasion. And Lindelwa, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on your book. There's also one from Njabi Miriam Hamukoto. She says, it's not a question, but I just wanted to share that I'm lucky to be in this room today. Lady L, you got this.
Thank you.
So it seems like our audience are really appreciating the information, and we would like you to also not just post questions, but also share your lessons that you're learning from this conversation with us having Lindelwa present here in Namibia today. Lindelwa, what do you, in your experience, is a positive role model that we can look forward to for the next generation?
Yeah. A positive role model to me is someone that's really comfortable in their skin. I've come to learn and to appreciate, you know, despite what people may have gone through, or, you know, despite who they were, what's always important is who you're becoming, right? And who you're journeying towards. So, you know, for instance, even the best mentors for me have been people who are truly comfortable in their skin, who they are, where they are, you know, and wearing, you know, their flaws and all, and their scars with confidence and comfort. And therein lies the teachings. So that's what's important.
Yeah. Bringing us back to being your authentic self in the workplace.
1000%.
We've got a few shout shout outs. This one is from Windhoek, Namibia. It's Dashi Grace watching from right here in the heart of Namibia. And Gladys Bugalo, she's watching from Bulawayo in Zimbabwe. It's wonderful to have the African representation on our conversation today. So thank you so much for the shout outs. We keep receiving your questions and your comments with Lindelba. The Black Girl's Guide to Corporate South Africa, which is also very relevant in the Namibian context and everywhere in the world. We cannot just confine this within a specific geography.
Absolutely. I think, as I said, as Black women, whilst we aren't a homogenous group, our experiences when it comes to the workplace are very similar.
Very similar indeed. So let's see if we get those questions coming. There's another one coming in. Yes, we've got Sibo in the house. She's from 99 FM and she have a question for you. How do we create a network, a community of Black women in the corporate space where we can support one another and climb the ladder together?
Thanks for that question, Sibo. What I've learned, and I guess which is why the friend of mine and I had started the movement back then, is it's important to create forums and spaces where we can have these vulnerable conversations, where we can have these conversations where we unpack these topics, because the more it becomes a norm, then it's not awkward, then it's not uncharted territory. But the onus is on us to create those spaces, and I guess and invite men into those spaces, right? Because women issues won't just be solved by women alone. But create the communities, have those communities growing bigger and bigger. Let's normalize, trying to change the DNA, the systemic DNA. Yeah.
And speaking of men, Lindelwa, do they also go through the toxic workplace experiences?
I'm sure they do. And I guess what's been unfortunate is because men don't express difficulty, I think we're seeing a lot in our society that men are suffering in silence. And there's a lot of mental health issues coming to the fore. But I think men should be encouraged to be vulnerable as well.
And I'm looking forward to that book for the Black men.
Exactly,
the
millennial
Black man.
Yes.
You might as well just write it on their behalf.
No.
There's
Staying
a comment here
lane.
from Kani Bokota. I have been reading your book and I am in love with you, honestly. I'm inspired. Thank you. That's from Bukani.
Yeah.
And then from Tassius, he's saying the following. So proud of this African sister. You got this indeed, and thank you for showing the way to those that think it's impossible. My daughters are better because of you.
Thank you so
Tassius.
much.
He's actually our Group CEO of Old Mutual Namibia.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
That is inspirational. So I love what you say because I'm, like I said earlier, from the Generation X before you. So when we walked into corporate workplace and we experienced the toxicity and, everything that you've gone through, because I could resonate very well, we were made to believe that's the way it is. So you're either in or you're out. And I love what he says in terms of for future generations and his daughters to come. We are challenging the status quo, and we are going to use our intellect and our abilities and our skills and our authenticity to change the culture at the workplace.
Absolutely, Marisa. People need to take better care of themselves.
Love that.
So that when they do come into workplaces, they're able to bring, their best parts.
Correct.
Yes, I think we all deserve, good environments.
I love that. It starts with yourself. This is Peggy Monguatu. Not a question, but really grateful to have joined in and catch this wisdom. So many facts and wisdom, the engagement from the comments, and also the great facilitation, Lady L. Thank you, and then she's sending us some hearts. We'll be getting the book. I'm in South Africa, Cape Town. I'm in the arts and busy with a performance piece that touches on the role of Black women in society. So this is from her here. So I think you guys should probably connect and we can see how we can use some of the content of your book in her script.
Exactly, yes. Thanks, Peggy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to know people are connecting from various parts of the African continent, and we definitely want to today just open the lid and say we're here not to judge, but we're here to find wisdom in your experiences. But also, for me, in essence, it's defining those nuances, you know, those vibes that we find in the workplace. And you can't really put a definition to it. But I think it's wonderful to know that these intersectionalities actually has a definition and we can talk about it openly.
And I've found power in that, Marisa, when you can find the words to express how you're feeling or what you're going through. It's a game changer, because then you know how to deal with it and move forward from it. But when you're grappling and you don't have the words to describe, you know, it's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, and you've got the guideline, so you've actually stipulated
it's not
to
all
navigate
the
it through. There's a specific part when you talk to interns about how to navigate through their journey. Please share those lessons with us.
Look, I don't remember all of them, but it's things like, you know, have an email trail, go ask if you're not clear, and then re-articulate it on email to say, as we had spoken, you know, this, that, and the other around covering your back. But just that openness, right? Because I think leaders also get encouraged when you ask. You know, how am I supposed to do that? How am I? And engage with your other colleagues as well, you know, before, like, bounce things off before you take a solution back. But just that openness. You're there to learn. I want to grow, therefore. So those are just some of them.
Yeah, and we're talking to the intern expert that's been in that position for 3 years.
For way long.
Before she made her way through the barriers. You specifically also highlighted, Lindelwa, the fact that in your specific career of choice, it took you much longer to break through those barriers, whereas your peers in the finance, business studies, they just easily were propelled through the system. Why was that in terms of your understanding?
I think upon reflection, Marisa, some career paths are linear, more linear than others, right? So I think if you go the accounting route, or, you know, most friends who are in the management consulting space, you're this and then you do that, and then, you know, and most of those companies, especially the truly multinational ones, it's merit-based, right? You do this for this amount of time, and then you become this and you become that, and very deliberate and intentional HR practices, I guess, around development.
Yes, which is unfortunate. We've got a note here from Lorna Munekamba. Thank you, Lindelwa. Definitely getting the book, I Am Inspired. And then also from our Facebook live broadcast, we've got Risha Ladaza Mokashoa, please forgive me if I didn't pronounce your name correctly, asking, do you have any stats on some sort of view as to how many men have been buying sorry, this one just skipped through, have been buying and reading your book? Because we're all going to need to collaborate to address these inequalities. I love that question.
I absolutely love that. Thanks, Rishaladza. I don't have those stats, but I should find out.
I think we should ensure that men are involved, and I know through our Fireside Chats and Women's Summit that there are quite a big number of men supporting these conversations. And always help driving also the conversation.
That's fantastic.
Okay, there's another one coming in. This one is from Jennifer O. Isaacs. As a student about to enter the corporate space, I'm so happy that we have black women with experience taking our hand in spirit and read, or rather ready to lead and guide us through books, and we will carry the knowledge and wisdom shared in the memoir for years and years to come. Thank you so much, she says.
Thank you.
And then one is saying here, the messages are really streaming in now. This is Corrine Binding, just saying book winner. Book winner. We're looking for those nominations. This is Elsie Kambala. I'm proud of the daughter of the African soil. Thanks for sharing the inspiring journey. It's high time we women start building each other and climbing the ladder together.
Love that.
Okay, those were some of our comments. I think we've got 7 minutes left on the broadcast, Lindelwa. I must tell you, I'm very inspired. I would like to go a little bit to the front of the book, back to the community building, you shared something that really resonated so well with me. While your mum was pursuing her career to take care of you as a single mom, you had a second mom in your house, which was your nanny. But there was a parallel relation between what your mum brought to you and what your nanny brought to you, and even the sacrifices she made on her own household to take care of you.
Yes, yes. And I guess the power in that similarity came when I was engaging my nanny's son, right? Because he was just sharing about how grateful he is that, you know, his mother had an opportunity to have a job and, you know, was able to take him and his siblings to school. And I thought, hang on, that's exactly what my mother was doing. I think it goes back to what we spoke about earlier as well, about black women, you know, always taking care of other people other than themselves, doing whatever it takes. I mean, for the majority of my mother's working life, she was hardly home, right? But she rest assured that, you know, another mother had stepped in, who also had to rest assured that there were other women in the village taking care of her kids. So that continuous, never-ending sacrifice of self of black women has been remarkable.
And I want to link that to a part in the book where you talk about how much more working mothers have to put into being professional, being on time, delivering, and still managing their households.
Yes, yes. I mean, there's another article I read that said, you know, working moms have a before work shift and an at work shift. Because before work, you know, are people bathed, are children clothed, you know, in some other people's instances, is your husband's suit ready, etc., before you get to taking care of yourself. And then you have contractual obligations, obviously, when you get to work. So for working moms, I don't know how you do it. Before work shift and an at work shift.
There's another comment coming in from Wendy Naru says, she's saying, Landelwa reminds me so much of Ashanti Manetti's teachings. Ashanti is actually in the audience and she's my millennial leader. I'm Gen X with a Gen Y leader. And I totally concur with Wendy. She says, thank you, Ashanti, for being this leader. You always encourage us and we appreciate it. Aww. So there's definitely a number of women that has decided to totally bring restoration in terms of leadership and the experiences of leaders in the workplace.
Yes, healing and restoration, Marisa.
Yes. If you need some healing and restoration, this is the starting point of all the bad experiences you might have had in your corporate setup, be it in Namibia or elsewhere in the world. Okay, so I think this is the last one I'm going to tackle before we sign off. Landelwa, there are one more from YouTube coming in, and this one is from a person in Namibia. I'm loving this chat. It's actually, I don't know if the person was supposed to disclose where they are working. I'm loving this chat, and it reaffirms a road that I'm planning on taking soon, especially on the part of you need to be self-aware, which leads to self-love and births confidence and authenticity. Landelwa, we've been taught as kids to always first take care of our communities, our siblings, our neighbors, because that is being perceived as being a good human being. And the dial is now shifted to take care of yourself. I don't think it's going to be that easy. What is your take?
And it's being okay with whatever labels that might come from it. I've seen, you know, when people don't understand what path you're on or what path you're going, you'll get called names. Oh, you're so selfish. Oh, you're this, you're that. It's okay. As long as you have clarity and self around who you're becoming and what you're working towards, stick to that. It's good enough. So yes, that's my take on that.
Landelwa, thank you so much. I think that is the last question we've received so far from our team at the background working. Thank you for our team of moderators. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for following this chat. I know a lot of people will still be tuning in over the weekend because the recording is still available. For those of you who joined a little bit later, you didn't miss out on anything. Oh, and I'm just being asked to please just share one more comment we got. This is from Nangula. What would your key message be to millennials as we wrap up this conversation in terms of how they can lead differently, number one, and break any damage that may have been done the past in terms of what good leadership looks like, or in the past in terms of what good leadership look like.
Yeah.
Did you get that one?
I think I did. So on the path of being self-aware, it allows you to step into your truth and step into your power. And when you've stepped into your truth and into your power, you don't feel the need to step on other people and oppress anyone else. So the more comfortable we are in our skins, there's just no need to be putting anyone down. So I'd encourage lots of us to start doing the inward-outward work.
Love that. Thank you so much, Nangula, for that one as well. With that, we've come to the end of our conversation. Ndelwa, I would like to thank you once again for saying yes to Old Mutual Namibia, for coming out to a totally strange country for the first time.
First time in person.
In person to Namibia, and for sharing your journey for us, or with us rather. And we're definitely looking forward to, and we'll be watching what you'll be doing in the corporate space and supporting you all the way from Namibia.
Thank you so much, Marisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. And please keep your eye on our social media channels in terms of the future of Fireside Chat, but also some of the key takeouts from this discussion today.